Noah's prophecy. Having been promised by God that his progeny would not be wiped out, Noah resumed marital relations, and his wife, as did his sons with their wives. The sons of Noah who came out of the ark were Shem, Ham, and Japheth. They each had a number of children. Ham was the father of 4 sons, the youngest of which was Canaan. Ham was incensed that his father Noah was trying to have more children. He assumed that Cain had killed his brother Abel because he wanted the whole world for himself. Since Noah was the new beginning of the human race, Ham considered himself already deprived enough by having to share the world with 2 other brothers, and should not be required to share it with any additional brothers. These were the sons of Noah, and from them the whole world branched out. Noah was the master of the soil, and understood the importance of grain as the mainstay of civilized life. Nonetheless, when he came out of the ark, instead of first planting a grain crop, he degraded himself by planting a vineyard to produce wine for purposes of enjoyment. He had brought vine branches along with him into the ark. He drank some of the wine and became drunk, and then uncovered himself inside the tent. Ham's youngest son, Canaan, saw his grandfather exposed. He ran to tell his father. Ham, the father of Canaan, came and entered Noah's tent and saw his father's nakedness. He realized that this was his chance to prevent his father from having more children. He first had relations with him, and then castrated him, and then told it to his 2 brothers outside. Shem, enlisting Japheth's help, took a garment and placed it on the shoulders of them both. They then walked into the tent backwards and covered his father's nakedness. Even when they approached him and had to turn their bodies around, they did so while facing away from him, so that they did not ever see their father's nakedness. Noah awoke from his wine and realized what his youngest, immature, and degenerate son had done to him. He said, "Cursed be Canaan, because of you, Ham, I will never have a 4th son to tend to me, and I no longer want you to tend to me. Therefore, since my eldest sons will now have this responsibility, I decree that your 4th son shall be a slave to his father's brothers, Shem and Japheth, who must now serve me alone." He then said, "Blessed be God, the God who will favor Shem by giving his descendants the promised land. Canaan's descendants shall be their slaves and pay them tribute. May God expand Japheth materially, but may he dwell in the tents of the descendants of Shem." One fulfillment of this prophecy occurred with regard to the 2 temples in Jerusalem. The first temple, built by Solomon, a descendant of Shem, was endowed with a far greater measure of divine revelation than was the second temple, which was built by Cyrus the Persian, a descendant of Japheth. And let Canaan's descendants be slaves to the descendants of Shem, even when the latter will dwell in the countries other than their own. In addition to Noah's explicit prophecies, there were additional repercussions to each son's behavior in this incident. Shem, for having cloaked his father, earned the privilege that his descendants, the Jewish people, would wear the ritual prayer blanket talit. Japheth, for having assisted his brother Shem in covering their father, earned the privilege that his eschatological descendant, Gog, will be buried in the land of Israel. Ham, for having capitalized on his father's exposure, earned the degrading embarrassment that his descendants would be carried off naked into captivity. Thus the conclusion of Part 1, Part 2, Part 3.